Well, good morning and thank you for joining our webinar today as we look at the Egyptian construction market for 2022 year to date and a review to understand what's in store for the remainder of this year and 2023. Well, the Egyptian construction industry is expected to grow as much as 12.3% to reach 472 billion Egyptian pounds this year, and is expected to maintain steady growth momentum with the expectations to reach 620.9 billion Egyptian pounds by 2026. Well, this growth has been fueled by the funding from the Egyptian government, a strategy that's driven a recovery in the construction sector, with the government continuing to roll out new infrastructure projects. It's expected the construction sector will record ongoing robust growth in the years to come. Well, growing demand for infrastructure from the rising economy and population, especially the transportation and energy sectors, is expected to lead this momentum in Egypt, with expectations to see increased private investment and the adoption of public-private partnership financing frameworks that will further drive the momentum. Well, the demand for affordable housing units has always been on a constant rise in Egypt, especially over the last few years, and is expected to remain strong. And based on this growing demand, the government is investing heavily in the residential construction sector all throughout the country. The Egyptian government announced plans to implement 45 major national and strategic infrastructure projects in the coming financial year, including 10 traverse accesses on the Nile, completion of 1,000 kilometers of railway development, and 47 new train stations. It's all happening in Egypt, and it's not just happening in one city, as you will hear about today. But is this pace sustainable? Will the devaluation of the Egyptian currency slow down the forecast for development? Will rising costs affect the expectations for continued output? And will the local industry be able to keep up with the demand? Well, these are just some of the questions that we hope to answer today in this webinar. And it's my pleasure to introduce our two guests today, both industry experts. I'd like to welcome the Senior Director for Commercial Business Development and Supporting Sectors from Sabur Consulting, Engineer Mohammed Raouf El Khouli, and the Strategic Planning and Business Development Director from Curve Landscapes, Marwan Farid. Guys, thank you so much for joining our webinar today. It's a pleasure to have you on board, and we do look forward to hearing from you later in our webinar. But why don't I just take this opportunity to allow you to both introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company so that we can understand your experiences and expertise in the market. Mohammed, why don't you kick us off this morning and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Good morning, everyone. First of all, it's really my pleasure being a guest and a panel speaker in such a prestigious event and discussion. My name is Mohammed Maruf El Khouli. As Philip mentioned, I'm the Senior Director for Commercial Business Development and Supporting Sectors in Sabur Consulting. I have 22 years of experience. Out of it is 20 years in consulting experience, spread between the Gulf and mainly UAE and Saudi Arabia and Egypt. I am proud to be joining Sabur since 1.5 years now. Sabur Consulting is one of the oldest house of expertise consulting firms in Egypt. We have been established in 1957 with more than 1,200 people currently being employed. We are spreading our consulting service, which varies in all disciplines and all sectors. And when I say all, I'm not exaggerating. Actually, we are doing business currently in 7 countries, and in all types of engineering consultancy works, from design, construction supervision, and project management, which is spread between master planning, urban design, architectural, structural, MAP, landscape. We are playing major role in the Egyptian construction industry right now, being our we are a major player in the consulting field in Egypt. We have been expanding in the last 2 or 3 years, exactly 2.5 years, in Africa and Middle East. We are currently having projects in Sierra Leone, Uganda, Mauritania, and Cote d'Ivoire, and hoping to have much more work in this region, because we are being part of Africa. We are developing there, and we are providing our background and expertise in Egypt and outside Egypt. So this is who am I and what we do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And it's good to have an engineer. How many engineers are there in Egypt? Everyone that I know that's Egyptian is an engineer. So I'm sure that there's quite a few. I do want to talk to you about that in later in the webinar.
As per the latest announced Egyptian syndicate members, I believe we are exceeding 5.5 or 6 million members in the Egyptian syndicate of engineers, with all different types. By the way, in Egypt, architecture is part of the Egyptian syndicate, because in many countries, architecture is separate. There is they don't consider themselves as engineers, but in Egypt, we consider them as engineers.
So you do count them. I mean, that's really quite interesting.
We count them, definitely.
Okay, well, I don't know if our next guest is an engineer or not, but he doesn't have engineer in front of his name, so
no.
You don't have
Sadly,
that.
No.
You don't have that engineer ENG badge to display. But Marwan, please tell us a little bit about your company and yourself. Thank you.
Okay, it's a pleasure again to be part of this webinar. It's really tackling a very important topic, and you have quite a great presence across the region. My name is Marwan Farid. I'm the Strategic Planning and Business Development Director for DMC, as Dar Ma'mar Construction. It's a contracting firm that has been in the market since 1989, so it's much more of above 30 years of experience. And we have also Curve Landscape as one of the top 3 construction or let's say landscape contracting specialized firms in Egypt, and actually expanding beyond Egypt in the region, in KSA, and potentially in other GCC countries. So we're a construction company that's a full-fledged construction company that has been in the market since, as I've said, more than 30 years. We're specialized in residential and mixed-use developments, providing our service to leading real estate developers and other governmental entities that we've done more than 300 projects across the past or the previous 30 years or 32 years. So we do the full-fledged scope of the construction scope, and we've been there with a lot of real estate developers and top-notch luxurious real estate developments that we've done the construction, and we've done also the landscape scope that has to do with such developments. You know, the developments here in Egypt is a bit of a bigger sized developments than any other country. You have like 1,000 and above 8,000 acres developments that are being done by privately owned companies and privately owned developers. And also you have a lot of chunk of our work that we've done that has to do with also governmental entities here in Egypt. That's much more. I have more than 20 years of experience in the real estate market with the real estate development companies and also with contracting companies, and I've done business development also for the consultation companies. So I've went through the whole real estate cycle, as you can see.
Well, most people that are your age and don't have hair have worked in the construction industry. So
yeah, definitely. It has to do with it's always falling whenever that you're working in such a challenging industry. It's really being challenging these days.
Well, I'm sure you've got lots of challenge happening in Egypt these days, and so we'll come back to that. And we have a lot to discuss and unpack. I'm sure that many of our guests today, and welcome to all of you, have a lot of questions about what's happening in Egypt. I'm sure we have people joining us from Egypt, but also throughout the entire GCC. We usually have guests from all over the world in our webinars. So thanks, guys, for joining us. We appreciate that. We will get through to answering some of your questions. So if you do have questions, please use the Q&A tab there on your platform and send us your questions. We'll get through as many of those as we possibly can. Now, before all of you start asking the question, we are recording this, and we will release a video, and we will share the presentations that I'm about to share with you. So if you've registered, we have your details. We are pleased to share that with you to help you, because at Ventures Onsite we believe that our purpose is to help you stay competitive in the marketplace so that you can be as profitable as you possibly can. Well, I'm going to move ahead with a presentation that we've prepared that will just give us a bit of an outline as to where we are and what's happening in Egypt, and so that we can see the activity that we're seeing in Egypt. And we've seen significant activity in the last few years, and clearly it is continuing. And this is what is of interest for us all today. And so just briefly, the Ventures Onsite Projects Tracker is a database of construction industry information. It's the data associated to every project in the marketplace, and we provide all the contact details from the concept of the project to the completion of the project. Now, Ventures Onsite has been existing for 20 years. My relationship with Ventures Onsite almost goes back 20 years. And we have in our database a very comprehensive historical record of project activity. While that may not be relevant to you in all instances, it is relevant to understand which are the major players. And it also gives us the opportunity to provide the analytics associated to market development over many years, the course of many years. And so let's move on with this presentation to give us an understanding, the real GDP growth for the GCC market. You can see that this year we've bounced back from last year, which isn't very difficult because it was a terrible year. But even still, one thing that we'll hear about is that COVID-19 didn't have a lot of impact in Egypt, but the GDP growth for Egypt is expected to be 6.1% this year, which is a very healthy push forward. We're seeing some significant activities in Kuwait, but and in the KSA markets, but Egypt is up there with the rest. Now we've seen in the last few months a significant increase in the oil price, which has declined in the last couple of months, giving us a little bit of relief at the pump. The significant increases in the gasoline prices here in the UAE, but it is falling back to a little bit of normality, and we're expected to still see relatively high oil price in the marketplace. Why is that so important? Well, in the Middle East, the oil price does dictate what happens moving forward for this economy. So the value of Egypt contractor awards in 2022 to 23 is expected to be 23 billion US dollars. All these numbers are US dollars, which is significantly more than the previous, this year is expected to be $19.9 billion, but next year it's expected to push higher at $23.5 billion. So the value of the Egypt contractor awards by industry, it's very relevant to break that down by industry, because in some markets, like we see in Qatar, the industrial activity or the oil and gas activity has been overriding what's happening in the construction sector. But here you can see that the buildings and infrastructure sectors are very strong. Buildings, infrastructure, and industrial activities comparative to the rest of the region, the entire Middle East region, these are exceptionally strong numbers. So some of the top clients who have awarded projects to contractors in Qatar, some of these names are familiar to me. I'm not sure if you catch the Ventures Onsite news update that we produce every week. If not, check out our YouTube channel and keep abreast of that. But some of these names are very familiar because they're always in the news and some aren't. So the General Authority for the Suez Canal Economic Zone, a lot happening in the Suez Canal Economic Region. ROCC, the New Urban Communities Authority, DMG, Al Nasser Holdings Company for Construction and Development, Al Qasim Developments, Ima Missa Developments, Leopard Development and Construction, and the Egyptian Electricity Transmission Company, the Ministry of Housing, Utilities and Urban Development of the General Authority for Roads, Bridges and Land Transportation. So these are ranked according to the projects that they are working on, and you can see there it's a mix of residential and infrastructure and industrial activity. So some of the top clients who have announced new projects in 2022, pushing those projects into 2023, mobilization more than likely, the General Authority for the Suez Canal, Missa Development, Ima Missa Developments, Eagle Hills, ROCC, the New Urban Communities Authority, the Ministry for Petroleum and Mineral Resources, General Authority for Roads, Bridges and Land Transport, the Minister for Housing, Al Nasser, and the Holdings Company for Construction and Development. And so those are the majority of the developers or the clients that are working on major projects today are continuing to announce new projects moving ahead for the future. Some of the top contractors in Egypt who have bagged or secured projects in 2022 include H2 Industries, Redcon Construction, Al Bad Contracting, ASGC, Al Shafar General Contracting, Al Kamsi Developments, Al Tawheed Construction, Consolidated Contractors Company, very strong activities in Egypt, El Shafwa Contracting, El Saouda Group, Gamma Construction, Solid Constructions, and Hassan Alam Construction. So sorry if I got some of those names not right there, but you can correct me later on, Marwan. I see you smiling, so that's good. And so the Egyptian Parliament has approved the budget for the fiscal year 2022 to 23, expecting a 15% increase in spending and a 14.5% rise in the deficit, according to estimates. Total expenditure will amount to 2.07 trillion Egyptian pounds, that's 106 billion US dollars, and a 1.5 trillion Egyptian pounds are expected to be in revenues. Now, some of the major industrial projects that have been announced in Egypt in the past few months include the Dabur Egypt to open the first phase of a new 50,000 square meter factory in Q1 2023. Samuto Egypt to build the biggest wiring harness plant with around 100 million US dollars investments. The French group Saint-Gobain is planning to build 2 new manufacturing plants for flat glass and gypsum and sustainable building materials over the next 3 years. It's very interesting. I do come from the glass industry, and it's always a very healthy sign to see the focus on raw materials or building materials focus, especially for glass. There are already a few glass manufacturers in Egypt. But I have heard that there is another world-leading glass company, Vitro, who is also reviewing the potential to establish glass manufacturing facilities in Egypt. Tianyi Chemicals company from China is planning to establish a bromine recovery plant in the Egypt Suez Canal Economic Zone. Egypt's Information Technology Industry Development Agency, ITIDA, it's a very long company name, isn't it? And the Chinese electronics manufacturer OPPO signed an MOU to build a mobile phone manufacturing plant in Egypt with around $20 million in investment. The Egyptian real estate developer GD Developments has signed an MOU with Aegis for the development of a 109 million square meter industrial city, Tabul in Giza. It will be developed into a green, smart, and livable industrial city in the heart of Egypt's trade area. The UAE, Egypt, and Jordan signed an industrial partnership agreement to enhance economic growth in the 3 countries across 5 key sectors, including food, agriculture and fertilizers, pharmaceuticals, textiles, minerals and metals, and petrochemicals. A $10 billion investment fund has been allocated, which will be managed by the Abu Dhabi state holding firm ADQ Holdings. Maersk and the Suez Canal Authority signed a $500 million deal for the development of the Suez Canal container terminal in Eastport said. The investment will include a new 1,000-meter container berth adjacent to the existing 500-meter one, as well as additional cranes to bring the total to 30, and all these new cranes will be powered by electricity instead of diesel. Anchorage Investments has shortlisted 4 international contractors for the second phase of the EPC tender on the Anchor Benita White project. The US $2 billion project comprises a chemicals complex that will be built in the industrial zone in the General Authority for the Suez Canal Economic Zone. Major industrial project there. ACW Power-led consortium comprising Hassam Alam Holdings signed an agreement to develop a 1.1 gigawatt wind project at an investment of $1.5 billion. This project is or will be the largest single contracted wind farm in the Middle East and one of the largest onshore wind farms in the entire world. The Suez Canal Economic Zone also signed an MOU with the Sovereign Fund of Egypt, Eastport said development company, and the Egyptian International Motors Group to establish Eastport said Automotive Zone, an automotive industrial complex in Eastport said Industrial Zone. EPAZ will house automotive and component manufacturing units and is expected to have an annual capacity of 75,000 vehicles in the first phase. I really look forward to hearing more about that project. Abu Dhabi renewable energy company Masdar and Egypt's Hassan Alam Utilities have signed 2 preliminary agreements with Egyptian stake-back organizations to cooperate in the development of green hydrogen production plants in the Suez Canal Economic Zone and the Mediterranean coast. The first phase will witness establishment of a green hydrogen manufacturing unit capable of producing 100,000 tons of methanol annually for bunkering in the Suez Canal, and the electrolyser facilities in the Suez Canal and on the Mediterranean would also be extended up to 4 gigawatts by 2030 to produce 2.3 million tons of green ammonia. Interesting developments. UAE's AD Ports Group and the Red Sea Ports Authority have signed a terms sheet for a head of terms agreement for major port projects along Egypt's coastline. The first agreement will see AD Ports Group develop, operate and manage a multi-purpose terminal in Safaga Port in a consortium with the Red Sea Ports Authority and the Egyptian Group for Multi-Purpose Terminals Company. The second agreement covers the development, operation and management of cruise ship berths and terminals at Sharm el-Sheikh, Hurghada and Safa ports, and to provide support services to help extend cruise tourism in Egypt. Very interesting. Egypt's Suez Canal Economic Zone signed a memorandum of understanding with a consortium of EDF Renewables and Zero Waste for the production of 350,000 tons of green fuel annually in the Ain Sokna region. The project involves $3 billion of investment, with construction scheduled to commence in 2024. So long-term plans moving ahead there in that region. We've seen strong, some of the construction drivers that we are seeing in the Egyptian market, strong future domestic demand for housing, healthcare, education, infrastructure, etc., owing to a young and growing population, the emerging public-private partnership market with new laws coming in place, a sizable project pipeline, the recovery of the tourism sector, finance from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the IMF will help provide liquidity for infrastructure projects. The US and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development have offered financial support for infrastructure projects, including financing to help support PPPs. That's a significant move there. The special economic zones are playing a major role in attracting more foreign investment, fueling industrial growth. And Egypt plans to increase renewable energy by 42% by 2035, with the target set for 2022 at 20%. That's significant. Some of the key challenges that will be faced moving ahead that we see, and I'd be very keen to hear what our guests have to say about this today, but skyrocketing inflation, what's happening to the price of raw materials, continued political instability in the Middle East could act as a destabilizing force for the economy. Please don't take it as negative, some of these points, but they are real. These are real concerns and considerations that we need to have. I had a boss used to say to me, plan for the worst and hope for the best. So take that in mind. Uncertainty over the security situations will affect investor sentiment towards the country. They do get worse, guys. Hang in there. Stay there with me. Legal grey areas with land ownership and the process by which it's awarded. Okay, so who owns the plot? And high levels, this is where you don't crucify me, but high levels of corruption, particularly related to the public sector tenders. Now, this may or may not be true, but it is a perception of those that are investing in the country. All right, so let's hope that moves ahead with confidence. So some of the major projects that have been awarded to contractors in Egypt that we're seeing, the waste to green hydrogen plant in Eastport, the Golden Gate, New Cairo, Mokatame Cornish Development, ORO Compound, Bellevue, New Zayed, Czen Resort, Cairo House Hotel, East Shire Compound. Maybe some of these projects are familiar with the locals. And those that are not, then these are some of the major projects. And here you can see the value of these projects, significant value. I mean, we're talking about $4 billion and $1 billion and even 150 million, significant. So that is a quick overview of the Egyptian market. There is a lot happening, and as you can imagine, we know that this, or hope that this will continue to extend for many years to come, but for how long? That's the question. What are we really seeing today in the current market? And so we hear a lot about very positive things going on in Egypt. We can read the headlines, we can see the news, but is that really what's happening in Egypt? So I'd like to go to Marwan first, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. What is the real situation in Egypt today? Is what we're hearing today really happening in the marketplace? Marwan, what do you have to say?
Thank you for the presentation and the overview. Just trying to change the perception of the last slide that you've just highlighted. But let me talk about facts and realities. Yes, it's becoming a challenging market. The growth is continuing across the upcoming 5 to 10 years, because as you can know, the demand is a real demand for the facilities and for the developments that are taking place, either infrastructure or other mixed use or residential / other sectors that are growing all the way, because there has been a suppressed demand across the previous years. And you know, as we all know, the political scene was back in 2010 and 2011 till 2013 or 14, there has been a pause in terms of potential developments. So the government now is much more endorsing, and the national or the new urban and development authorities are being very cautious and motivating much more of public and private partnerships in projects, in different projects. Actually, we're growing now into a much more of 14 new potential cities that are being planned, and if you've just visited Cairo or Egypt in the previous couple of years, you'll feel and you'll see the real transformation when it comes to the transportation, the infrastructure that has to do with roads, the different connections that are taking place between different governorates and different cities, that would make it much more easier when it comes to industrial and manufacturing and moving the commercial part of and the economic anchor for having different industrial zones that you've just talked about. So we're a population of 100 million and it's growing at a 2.5, which is, we have a new country that is being born each and every year. If we're looking around into the demographics of the regional populations around different countries around us within the same region, you'll find the highest one would be much more of Saudi, which is 38 million, and it's not growing at the same growth rates that we have. So there is real demand. There is a limited supply that has to do with specialized projects. We're heading towards much more of industrial and manufacturing. Yes, we had a couple of devaluations that took place across the previous years. They had a negative impact definitely on the pricing and the inflation of the raw materials. That's why a lot of tenders that we're tendering for now in DMC and Curve, we're trying to resort to local material much more than imported materials. And actually the government is taking some precautions on such material to try to promote the local components and the local material much more than motivating contractors to have much more of importation and to grow the manufacturing facilities. As you've said, there is a lot of investments that are taking place really in industrial zones and in manufacturing facilities. This would give a competitive edge for Egyptian material to really promote it and to start exportation for such material. So
that's a very good point, Marwan, and I will come back to that a little bit, because I do want to talk about the industrial developments for local materials in Egypt. But Mohammed, maybe if you could weigh in on some comment here. So the construction activity is definitely moving ahead, but it's moved ahead very quickly. I think it was only like 4 or 5 years ago that they started talking about developing the new capital, the district, and it did move ahead rapidly. And in the last couple of years, we've seen that government investment spur a significant amount of private investment throughout the country. Is the industry coping with this? And has this that last point in the last slide, how has that been affected? Has the government worked to try and clean up the construction activities and this development market?
Actually, the pace of the construction industry, Philip, is really during the past actually 7 years, from 2015-16 till date. The pace of the construction industry was moving in a very rapid manner, that many of the construction key players in the market were trying to cope up with what's happening. But we were, because of the Egyptian plan, announced 2030 plan, we were planning for this. We were ready somehow for this, despite the very high pace, which we have been all seeing during the past period, but it required some preparation internally. So most of the companies has been the remote access preparation in terms of staff preparation, training plans, preparing adequate resources for the projects, arrangement of the funding and financial backup to the projects, and internally for the facilities. All this was challenges that we need to prepare for, and I think we are coping up with this, despite that the currency fluctuation, which a little bit affected the commercial aspect of the projects. But on the other side, everything has the other side of the coin. To be frank and honest, as a service provider, I mean, we are our main target and our main assets are our staff and our team. We have a competitive edge with what's happening right now, despite the inflation rates, but still we are becoming very competitive. This helped us to grow internally and externally also. And to have something which is really respected by the government to support such actions, which was during the year, I think 2017, there is a law announced by the government to have economic balance for contracts, which was signed during the first devaluation during March to December 2016, which really helped a lot of companies to recover the bounce and the effect of such devaluation, something really respected. I heard that there is something currently ongoing again for such, because it's very challenging the year 2022 in terms of internal for the inflation and the economical devaluation for the Egyptian pound versus the US dollar and other foreign currencies, but which, as we will talk later, has affected the raw material prices, the assessment of, especially for the developers, for contractors. But I'll come back to your question, but all the companies, I can't say all, but let's say 70 or 80% of the key players in the market were able to cope up with the pace of the construction. And actually it helped a little bit, to be frank and honest, in filtering the market also, because when you have this space, only stable, reputable, capable companies can sustain such pace and can sustain such challenges actually. So I think it was healthy in a way and challenging in another way. So I think we are doing fine during the past period. I cannot say great, but fine at least.
Good. Marwan, I mentioned in my introduction that it's just not happening in one city. You know, in the UAE, we saw developments in Dubai, we saw developments in Abu Dhabi, and of course throughout the entire region. I live in beautiful Ras Al Khaimah, and we're seeing lots of things happening here. But it's not, when people look at Egypt, they think about Cairo. And you know, we know that there are many other cities throughout Egypt, but the development that is going on in the marketplace is across the entire country. Can you give us a brief overview of what's going on?
Yeah, actually, there is a huge developments that are taking place. As I've said before, developers here are much more of planning large-scale cities, which is around. You have like TMG, Talat Mustafa Group, they're developing around 8,000 acres developments, and you have A'mar also, which is one of the top 3, and you have Mountain View as one of the top 3 or 4, and Sadiq. These are big developers that are developing much more than not only a neighborhood or a closed community residential areas. It's much more of, it's a huge cities or mini cities that has to do with all the facilities inside, and you'll find it inside. You'll have the medical hub, you'll have the hotels, you'll have the entertainment hubs, you'll have the malls, and it's a big mixed-use development. And we have a lot of land that's on both sides of the capital. So you have the new Cairo, which is the east side, where you have also the new capital that's being developed by the government, and you also have 6th of October on the west side, which is a huge, big urban development that has been there since 15 years ago, and it's continuously developing. As you've said, things are growing there in UAE. I know the fact. Yet when it comes to real estate development, you'll always find that the big players like A'mar, when you look at the financials, you'll see how Egypt is having the major contribution to the growth of overall A'mar. So you can really see that the Egyptian market is of great potential for real estate developers, either they're regional or they're local. Actually, now local developers are thinking of expanding also beyond Egypt, because they've seen real estate developer coming from the region. They've been competitive when it comes to the quality and the quality of the communities that they develop. So the thinking of why not exploring other countries also. Yes, we're growing here and we can continue growing outside Egypt also.
It's interesting that you talk about quality, because it was my next question. My years of experience associated to Egypt recall that the quality of construction was relatively, under par. The requirements for materials that would contribute to a sustainable, low energy consuming buildings didn't really exist in Egypt. It was always cut the quality out to lower the cost. Is that still the case in Egypt, Mohammed? Are you seeing an improvement in construction standards, green buildings, that kind of activity?
Actually, it is totally now different. Really, I'm not exaggerating at all, but the real demand is for better quality now has becoming a mandate. I'm not talking about sustainability or green architecture or anything. I'm talking right now as a first discussion, our first point of our discussion about the quality standards. Quality standards has been mandated right now because of the current era of construction requires really different levels of quality. And thanks to the standards and the key players of the market right now and the competition which is currently happening, when you have international key players in the market in terms of developers, in terms of consulting firms, in terms of contracting firms, and even suppliers of materials, all this, when you have this, it enhances and it gives the market much more strength in terms of quality issues. Plus that the nature of the projects itself, when you are moving forward to different sizes of project, coping up with the latest technology and construction standards around the world, this mandates a certain levels of quality that has to be achieved. So currently we are really moving in a very good direction in terms of quality enhancement. That we are having standards. Project has been properly tendered with proper specifications, level of details. I'm talking right till now. I'm talking about the normal conventional construction system. But when you go further ahead in a further step, when you are going to BIM or building information modeling based type of designs and projects released, and the contractors are developing this further to even issue shop drawings, and after that issue the as-built at the end until the facility management use. All this enhances the quality in terms of coordination, in terms of levels of materials used. And on top of this, with the current need for sustainable architecture and energy efficient types of buildings, we are and Egypt, by the way, they are releasing right now we are releasing our own standards for green architectural standards. So it's becoming a mandate to have different types of qualities in terms of material, in terms of designs, nature of projects, sizes, types of projects, even especially that Egypt is hosting the COP27 in coming November. So we are moving forward towards this direction in a very efficient manner. And allow me to focus a little bit on what we are doing in Sabur, because it starts always with the developer and the consultant, because the consultant is the technology base. We are currently one of the few companies, or not say few, but we are one of the companies who are really using BIM technology in all our projects are BIM based. We are issue a fully fledged BIM model with all our tenders during the design. We have our sustainability standards, low carbon emission standards in terms of use of material. So we are following the latest sustainability requirements, either LEED or BREEAM or whatever green architecture type of standards required. So the projects now is really on a different edge of quality. The clients demand different types of quality, because especially the competition right now is very challenging. So innovation and quality is is the two key players now that gives the competitive edge to any developer or any consultant. So,
well, it's good to hear that Sabur is very active there with the technologies and implementing new procedures for improved efficiencies in the project activity. Is that the same for the entire industry, though? Are you just particular or special, or are all consultants moving? Is the entire industry moving in this direction?
Actually, it's the entire industry. There are always people who are taking a first step, but right now the entire industry is moving in this direction. Even right now, you cannot submit, for example, in the new administrative capital, you cannot submit any project for approval to the authority without having a BIM model attached to it. So to enhance the coordination and reduce the abortive work with the clash reports, with all this kind of requirements, this is the it's becoming now an industry trend, not being a single player action or an initiative taken by one of the key players in the market. No, it's becoming a trend and standard.
I would like to add just to what Engineer Mohammed was saying. It's becoming really a standard. So in the real estate market, there is a lot of players, big players, that are putting it as part of the guidelines for a company or for a consultant to work with them or not, is having the sustainability and the BIM. So and as he's just stated, that the authorities in the new capital, which is the main developments, you can see what's happening in the CBD, which is the Central Business District. Everything is developed with sustainability, and green buildings are being developed there. Where you have the business district with the iconic tower and everything that has to do. And we have a couple of tenders that we've been awarded there. They're very strict when it comes to having such sustainability and having such parameters and guidelines for any contractor or even any consultant that's working on such projects.
Very good. Well, the pace of construction activity is bounced ahead in Egypt. One of the biggest concerns that we see all around the world is the labor force to support the construction activity, that growth. I'm sure that there's plenty of labor available in Egypt, but over the last 15, 20 years, all of your engineers left the country. I mean, they just came to the UAE or Saudi Arabia. I know, Mohammed, you were based here in the UAE for some time. What's the situation with regard to, technical personnel to support this construction activity? Are you seeing people come back like Mohammed did, or is there just enough engineers? Is there an endless well of engineers from Egypt? That's my question. Mohammed, why don't you answer this, because you are the engineer, so you've got the engineer badge.
By the way, let's say Mohammed and Marwan and Philip, I'd like it to keep it like this. Forget about the badge of engineering or anything.
Yeah. I'm always called engineer.
Never, no. I will not let you get away with it. No.
To be frank and honest, it's thanks to the stability that happened in the Gulf right now and the booming which happening in Egypt. So it's became a vice versa, a reversed bounce right now, what's happening in the Gulf compared to what's happening in Egypt. I'm excluding a little bit KSA, but let's say the balance with Qatar becoming achieved, or we are, I think, 40 days away from the World Cup right now. UAE with I stayed there for 16 years or 17 years. I've been living there and doing business there. So with the stability that UAE has achieved in terms of infrastructure, the maturity they have achieved compared to the population size, with the economic crisis which happened in 2008 and all the Arab Spring, all the political aspects and everything happening there. So it became the pace there has been slowing down a little bit. So on the contrary, Egypt was moving forward. And as you mentioned, during that time, many people, because of what's happening in Dubai and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, they left the country moving there because of better opportunity, better financial income. The capitalization happening right now has enforced it somehow, some certain levels that the differences are not that much. If you calculate the net saving the person can do in his home country compared to what he will spend in other countries becoming, definitely the Gulf is a little bit have an edge in this, but with the construction industry slowing down a little bit in the Gulf and the construction boom happening there, we benefited as the Egyptian construction industry key players from the people, many experts or many good calibers coming back from many places, wanted to join what's happening and cope up with what's happening. So this enhanced the market, gave a taste to the market, because these people has been exposed to many international types of projects, international standards, latest top quality products, and to have a very clear statement what was happening in the Gulf, especially in Dubai and Qatar, in UAE and Qatar in the past 20 years. I don't think it will be repeated easily in many places. It's only happening right now in Egypt, really, because we are building also another country with the new cities which are being developed by the government, plus the key market players' participation in the construction industry. I do think that what's happening now in Egypt is more or less equal to what happened in UAE and Qatar, and which is currently being the case somehow in Saudi Arabia, because they are developing a little bit because of the size of the country, what's happening there. So the biggest markets right now in the region is Saudi Arabia and Egypt. So because of the maturity levels at Qatar and UAE and of their size and population, they're totally different aspects, different size of comparison compared to Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Yes, I can say that the engineering quality has been really enhanced, and we benefited from people coming back to the Egyptian market, which added a lot to the local quality.
Good.
Just add one thing.
Is there a labor shortage though, Marwan? Is there labor shortage?
One special incident that we have in our company, which is DMC and Curve. We have a couple of engineers that has been
only two.
That's for instance. We have around much more than 4,000 experts.
Okay.
But I believe we have two cases that was working, and they were settling in Australia and the UK. And they came back really and worked with us, because they can see this is an international and a global thing. You can see that there is, you can count the countries that are really growing when it comes to construction and real estate development across the globe in such economic situation and with the war that's happening in Ukraine and Russia. So we have here real stability when it comes to growth, when it comes to the real estate or other complementing like construction industry or oil and gas. So things are growing at a much more of a sustainable base rather than it's a short-term growth.
Is this demand for labor increasing the salary levels there in Egypt, or are you seeing higher salaries?
Yeah, that's what Mohammed was saying. Actually, the difference, the severe difference that's taking place, bearing in mind the devaluation, you can see now the salary scales are a bit on the high front, on the high level when it comes to the Egyptian market. So if you're
a guest joining us today, and especially if you're an engineer and Egyptian, go home. There is lots of opportunity for you. That's the message. Okay, very good. Welcome. Listen, guys, it's been just such a pleasure to talk with you. And the three of us could just continue talking for like 2 hours, but we do have to come to a close, and we've gone a little bit over my schedule. But there are some questions that we want to get through very quickly. And this is very positive discussion. I don't mind if we go beyond the 1 hour. But if you do have any questions, audience, please hit that Q&A and send us your questions. We'll get through them. How long is this market growth expected for the construction industry? Quick answers, guys, quick answers. Marwan, how long do we expect this construction boom to continue in Egypt?
Not less than 10 years from now, not less than 10 to 15 years.
Are you seeing a lot of healthcare? This is a question from Hamza. Are you seeing a lot of healthcare activities in the construction, new hospitals?
Definitely. The boom that has happened in the real estate market was about residential communities. And there is a lot of expansion when it comes to residential communities with a lot of developers and also the government having residential complexes. Now it's the time for the facilities that would serve such residential communities. So you'll find a lot of retail, medical and hospitals, hubs and clinics that are taking place. A lot of actually operators that are coming internationally from different countries across the globe to really have a branch here in Egypt. So this is happening. A lot of also part of the permits and part of the license for the developers to develop such lands is having a hospitality component within the land. So you do have a lot of hotels that are being planned for, a lot of hotels, and actually Mohammed can confirm that they have a lot of hotels that are really in the pipeline for design right now. Let's say on the Mediterranean coast or on the Red Sea coast or even within Greater Cairo. So you have across the whole nation, and we can say that it's nationwide. There is a lot of hotels from 3 stars and you can hit to 5 and exceeding luxurious also operators that are being here.
John, there you go. There's an answer to you. We have a guest joining us. He asked that question about hotels. So thank you for your question, John.
I want to add one more thing regarding the health issue. There is Egypt will adopt a new health insurance global and general health insurance system, which has been tested in 2 cities right now, in Port Said and Luxor, and it will be announced very soon. This will add a lot of healthcare facilities in terms of clinics, hospitals. This will have really a strong impact on the healthcare facilities in the Egyptian market. So this
very
is
interesting. That's new news to me. So thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
Do you think that the government will revert back to the LC payment mandate for international suppliers supplying to projects in Egypt?
This is very governmental type of a question. So, but I'll answer from what I know or the news which is coming right now in the market. With the current, we are in the final phase of agreeing with the IMF regarding the agreement for the foreign currency. I do believe this issue will be definitely solved, but we need to focus more internally in Egypt about the local supply of material and local manufacturing products. We need, but importing solutions will be resolved. Exporting issues will be resolved hopefully by the end of the year, and they will come back to the LC. As information, as I know, they will come back to this by the end of the year.
Krishnan also asked, adding barriers such as this, wouldn't it deter companies increasing their efforts as an international supplier to the Egyptian market? And the answer is yes. I mean, the whole purpose of Egypt is to create industrial investment.
Yeah. Actually,
moving forward. It's not just a matter of building bridges and building roads and train stations and houses. There has to be a sustainable investment.
We want companies to have their manufacturing facilities in Egypt to try to minimize the exporting as much as possible.
Absolutely.
And enhance the industrial projects and localize the products in Egypt as much as we can.
Currently, there is a lot of international brands that are really opening manufacturing facilities here. So we're much more of motivating international brands and international facilities to open, because the labor here, the labor cost is really on the low side versus other countries. So
it was the same in the UAE when the cities started to be built. Cities were being built. There was very few manufacturing activities. I moved to the Gulf because of glass manufacturing coming to the UAE. And so, yes, I understand that is the step to move forward. So long as that construction activity continues and the capacities that are added to the marketplace have a place to, supply their products. Otherwise, it creates a lot of disruption. But the quality of product needs to be there. We mentioned earlier about Saint Gobain and Vitro Glass, just as an example, that there are many international industry players of material supply to the construction industry focusing today in that Egyptian market, also as a gateway to the North Africa region. So it's not just Egypt for them.
Not only the North African market, because Egypt is really geographically is the hub and the link between Europe and Asia and the African continent. So by having your manufacturing facility there, you can really achieve all the African continent key players, not only the North African or Middle Eastern African type of countries.
There's one question here from a Muhammad Ali. He says, regarding the quality, do designers and contractors looking for durability enhancement and extended services life for the infrastructure projects? I guess Muhammad's just saying, are the products being specified today being specified as a represented quality product? Are these...
Actually, I'd like to answer this in a very short manner, but with an example which we are currently doing. I cannot, sorry to announce exactly the name of the project, but in one of the projects, we have been passing through value engineering exercise. And I do think that 95% of our participants and yourself, you know exactly that value engineering is normally attributed to cost saving, right? In this project specifically, the cost or the price of the project has increased compared to enhancing the durability and life cycle of the entire project. So it was relevant to enhancing efficiency rather than reducing the capex or the cost of the project. So answering this question, yes, definitely. Right now, the designers and the clients are looking forward to enhance the durability and lifespan of any project. And they are definitely, surely the cost of the capex is considered, or the capital cost should be considered, but it's a value for money at the end that determines what kind of product to be used.
Well, I think we hit a nerve on this import of products, because I'm sure there's a lot of industry that have supplied the Egyptian market for many years, and now they're finding it difficult. There are two questions that I'd like to bring to our attention. First of all, an anonymous attendee has mentioned that will this change? Is there a focus that will allow imports again into Egypt? Now, I say that quickly because Christine has written a very good question, and I'll read it word for word, okay? Due to the new importing regulations since last February to open an LC, which is not an easy process due to the shortage of US dollars with the banks, what is the expectation to continue the constructions without the principal materials such as fire alarms, security systems, BMS, etc.? I'm sure she's from the fire industry, right? So this is applicable on all the imported materials and it already affects the entire marketplace. So restricting imports is a good thing, but restricting imports has a negative side. So where do we stand with this?
Yeah.
Can you please help Christina? Christina's very frustrated, fire alarm girl, and she's doesn't know where to sell her products.
Actually, now the government is funneling down the products. I mean the items that are restricted. Whatever that you have a replacement when it comes to local product. So definitely they will try to promote the local product. But if there is a demand for a certain quality, if it matches the quality of the imported product, I mean the local product, where if there is nothing matchable in terms of quality for the exported product that we export from outside Egypt, then definitely or that we import from outside Egypt, then definitely they will resolve such an issue. And that's happening across different projects that we're actually bidding for and we're working on. We're mobilized on site. One of them is one of the CBD towers there. So it will dissolve as we're going across for products that are extremely specialized, as you've highlighted, anything that has to do with fire fighting systems, surveillance, CCTVs, these type of security, I don't think that we have a replacement for. Definitely, they will have a resolution for such material and such items.
My answer to Christine, wait with us a little bit. Another 3 to 6 months, I think this issue will be resolved.
Yeah, I think it's much more of a couple of months, Mohammed, or
Yes,
actually,
I'm just trying to tell
by end of year,
everyone.
you'll find it dissolved.
Really, we are in a transitional phase. I lived this in two different countries, which is, I consider them my home countries, definitely Egypt and UAE. I have been there for, I have seen what's happened in 2008. I have seen what happened in 2016. It always takes some time to reach stability after a strong economical impact. But after that, the market adopts and adapt with the new market trends, and life is going. And so definitely this will, as I'll try to be as optimistic as Marwan within the coming 2 months, but I'm trying to be on the pessimistic side, maximum 3 to 6 months, and this issue will be resolved. This is as far as we know from our insight in the market.
Ru has weighed in here and has said it's not just fire alarms, but to his knowledge, there are no manufacturers of tower cranes in Egypt, and they cannot establish or haven't been able to establish an LC since February 2022. So, I mean, this is a real issue. This is a real problem. Guys, I have 2 questions, and there's a lot of other questions that we've received on this subject, and we'll get back to answering these. If we don't get to your question today, we will email the response to you. So thank you so much for your questions, but they're all in the similar tone. But there is one very interesting question from Robin, and I'd like to read this. How can the country assure that all developments are benefiting the average citizen? And can those afford the facilities that are being installed? I mean, a very relevant question. You have disparity between wealth and affluence in Egypt, but is there a consideration for the low income as well as the high income members of society in Egypt?
It's definitely challenging for the private sector, yet there is always subsidization that's coming from the government in relation to national projects that they're endorsing in different cities across the nationwide, and it's like 300,000 units that will be across the upcoming couple of years, that will be for the public Egyptians that are they don't have the affordability to go to the mid and upper class level of housing. Definitely there is a challenge related to the pricing that developers are going through. They're trying to minimize the reflection of the inflation on their pricing, and actually this has happened across this year and the last year. Let's say that the price hiccups or the price increases on the average per meter square for the selling price would be around 14 to 15 thousand Egyptian pounds, which is 15%, which is let me say 15% is related to the inflation. The inflation is much more higher than this. So prices are being appreciated, yes, for the real estate developers, and also the prices are not growing with the pace of the inflation that's taking part or are taking place right now. So there is always a demand. There is always demand for different segments and different tiers across the socioeconomic classes that are in Egypt. Yet there is a high supply for the A and B class, and this is where the competition is rising. There is a lot of developers that are taking place in the new capital right now, and a lot of residential developments. You'll have a lot of competitive pricing there. The only thing is you have to be very aware of the previous projects and the real estate developer that you're engaged to, because this is a long-term commitment when it comes to choosing your real estate investment.
Well, there's a flurry of questions with, not really questions, more statements of all the types of products that are not manufactured in Egypt. And so I think, guys, if you can find me an investor, we'll go ahead and we'll build tower cranes in Egypt. And Adele says that there's no life safety products, so we'll set up a factory for life safety products, and definitely we'll go there with fire extinguishers. We need a fire extinguisher factory, so let's find some investors and we'll start making in Egypt.
Great.
But here
let's have such a list. Let's have such a list and have it in a different forum.
The point is, make in Egypt. I mean, this is what's moving ahead, and there will be difficult times moving forward. There'll be, inabilities to import. There'll be a lack of supply of certain products, but that only drives the demand and will stimulate the investment for those particular products. And so, for the next couple of years, we'll see a little bit of dysfunctionality in the marketplace with regard to supply for the requirements. But over the next 10 years, we'll definitely see that level out very well. Two fantastic questions today. Christine, I appreciate your question, and Robin, good question there. I think you both win the award for the best questions of the day. Christine, if you go to Egypt, Mohammed's going to take you on a tour of a construction site, and Mohammed's going to take Robin on a tour. So thank you for that. Very good. Now, there is one other question, and we haven't really, and I want to finish with this because we haven't talked a lot about the capital city, the capital development. There was one particular question there. What is the size of this? And I know when we had our preliminary discussion, Marwan, you talked a little bit about the octagon. I know you can't share a lot of information due to security reasons.
That's Mohammed, not me.
Mohammed, that's what I thought. Sorry, Mohammed. Yes, you talked about that. I mean, you mentioned the size of the octagon. Can you give us some facts about this project and how many people you have working there? I thought that was pretty amazing.
I think it's the project is the entire new administrative capital is 44,000 acres, and it's not only the octagon. The project, which is the strategic command center, is around 20,000 acres. So it's represents at least 40% of the size of the new administrative capital. It contains a lot of things, but it's not. I think all the information are available on the internet as announced by the military. How can I say it? They have their own announcement. The engineering, exactly, but it's
definitely engineers.
Yes, but the project comprises a lot of things. It's the strategic command center for the military, which is the size in the shape of an octagon, contains infrastructure, contains hospitals, compounds, administrative buildings.
How many people does your company have working in that area?
We have around 400 people. So varies between 200 to 500 to 300, depends on the workload. Yes.
Marwan, is your company involved in project works there?
Yeah, in the Central Business District, which is the CBD, where you have the iconic tower and all the high rises and the vertical towers that are being built. CSEC, which is the China State, is the main contractor for the overall and part of developing it with Dar al-Handasa as the main consultant, and they act on behalf of the Ministry of Urban Developments and Housing. So actually the pace is really on the high side when it comes to construction within the new capital overall. Just a piece of advice to whomever is trying to invest or really to explore the Egyptian market, they have to have a high agility and flexibility and to be much more competitive when it comes to pricing. So there is a huge volume of work, and most of the projects are on the fast track pace. So they have to manage the resources based on that and have their business model adopt and adjust to such setup.
Is that whole construction zone organized or chaos? I mean,
it's definitely organized. Yeah, it's organized. There is a lot of safety and quality procedures that are taking place, and actually during the COVID, there is a lot of people that are saying that it never hit the ground. We had, as I've said before, we had our protocol that has been in all the sites that we were working across, and usually whomever is not abiding by the protocol and how they should work in such a pandemic, they would be disqualified from the site right away. And we have a board each and every day. You can count the number of labor that has been disqualified. So this is part of what we do, really. So we do have quality standards, and all the owners and the developers are always looking for quality standards and safety standards that usually are being endorsed in all our projects.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We've gone over time, but it's been an enjoyable discussion, and all of our audience has stayed with us, which is fantastic. Thanks for sticking around for a little bit. There is one final question that I'd like to answer, and that was asked, how is the Ventures Onsite projects tracked in Egypt? Which is a question for me, not for you. But Ventures Onsite has always tracked project activity in Egypt, but in the last 12 months, we've established a stronger presence in Egypt with our own research team, and we are tracking the projects from concept to completion. And so within the database, we report on who the contractor is, who the architect is, who the contractor is. We identify the project owner and the subcontractors associated to the project. We provide a report, and all of this information is accessible from the platform, and as a subscriber to the platform, you have access to all of that information. So if you're just looking at the Egyptian market, you can secure the database only for Egypt or any other GCC country. Our database extends all the way through the North and East and South Africa regions, and so very comprehensive database of project activity, very useful to support your analysis of market or identify who certain players are for product specification and product sale. And so I work with Ventures Onsite, but I've been a client to Ventures Onsite for many, many years, and similar types of services. And I do know that information like this can make you competitive once you start using it. So the Ventures Onsite project team are in Egypt. We are very active there as well. And so we look forward to supporting you. If you have any questions, then please reach out to us and we'll follow up with that. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking around. Thanks for joining us today. Very interesting discussion on Egypt. We hope that this has been informative for you. Marwan and Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us. Your contribution today was mostly appreciated. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful day, and we look forward to catching you again in our next webinar at Ventures Onsite. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.